So, Dhammanupassana is part of Satipatthana, and Satipatthana comes from the word Satipatthana. Sati, the Pali word Sati means mindful, and Upatthana is introspection. So, mindful introspection is what it means. Today I was conducting a similar program in the morning at a temple far away in Meegoda, that is off Homagam. And I was telling there about more than 100 people there for Poya. They had observed Sil. So what I was telling them is, had the Buddha spoken in Sinhala as a language, it would have been probably much easier for us to understand what he was trying to say. The language he used is Magadha or Pali. And in the last 600, 700 years, the translations have given us a bit of an overdose. So what you see right now is an overdose of Dhamma, which is probably good for studious, venerable theros who like to go into deep analysis. But for general laymen like us, who hardly have time to meditate on a good day, the less we know, the better. And that is what Venerable Ajahn Chah always used to say. And as my father, my first teacher too is Venerable Konanya Thero. We fondly called him as Loku Hamduro. He was the chief monk at our temple. He would tell us, Anapanasati can take you a long way because it builds your awareness so that you can see what is really going on at a finer level. The problem is we see what is going on at quite a coarse level. So slowing down and observing is important. Venerable Ajahn Brahmansha gives a good example on this. In one of his many wonderful talks, he refers to one day coming back from an almsgiving, how it was a nice spring or summer day, and he wanted to walk up the little hillock where his monastery is, instead of getting the ride up in the car. So he got down at the foot of the hill and he walked up. And he said for years he was driven past that little road. And the first time he saw how many tiny flowers were there by the roadside on the grass. The speed at which a car travels, obviously, you don't see that. But the walking speed, you see much more. And then he said, I stopped. But we generally say stop and smell the roses. I stopped to see, and I saw even clearly. And this is what the Buddha and all venerable monks tell us, to slow down and to stop. Then only you can observe at a very fine level what is really going on. So meditation, samatha, is helpful to stop, to slow down and stop. And then at fine concentrated levels, when you investigate, you will see exactly what Gautama Buddha saw when he sat alone on that dark night at the bo tree and got enlightened. And the way the Buddha put it across, it was not meant to be a rocket science. It was quite straightforward and simple, which, being a master teacher that he is, put it across in ways that a child could understand. Farmers, he told it from farming context. To housewives, he explained from a kitchen context. For kings, he explained from their context. And for 45 years, he explained it in very different ways, but he was more or less saying the same thing. So now what we have is all of it is now available on your pen drive, on the internet, in Dhamma talks. So what we have is an overdose. Now he never intended one person to consume it all, because if he did, he would have clearly structured it into a syllabus and given to it section by section, part by part. But now we are getting it in that form and we are getting lost in it. So some venerable monks help us to come to the surface and to pinpoint on some simple things that will help us in this path. And this is probably an era where there is a, a refreshing, a relaunching, something of the Dhamma is happening. There's a saying that this is the turn of the tide before the Dhamma starts to erode. Perhaps it is, but certainly as a child, when I was looking for answers, as a youth, even in my middle age, there were things that I didn't come across, which is now coming across in various talks by venerable sanghas. And all of them have one thing in common. They learned Pali. They were curious and they believed that what is available in books is not exactly what the Buddha said. They believed there's an overdose. They wanted to know what is exactly the Buddha's word that will be useful for us. There were many things that was useful. What is the words, the few words that will be useful for us in this journey to enlightenment? And those few words, they took great effort to learn Pali. Some of them went even further to understand psychology, physiology, and many other studies to make sense of it. And they have presented it to us, and we are so fortunate. So this is what I have understood from it. And it's so simple, it makes so much sense. I have now come to learn that if something is simple and it makes sense, it must be what the Buddha told. If something is complicated and difficult to understand, probably the Buddha didn't say it or somebody has misinterpreted it. Enlightenment is all about understanding, really understanding the three characteristics of life. Everything in life has these three characteristics. And we know this from small age, at least if you studied Buddhism, like most of us do here in Sri Lanka. That is Anitya, Dukkha, Anattma in Pali, impermanence. Suffering is the word used, but many prefer unsatisfactory nature of life instead of suffering, and non-self, Anattma. So the starting point is always to ask yourself, what do I know about these things? Most of us have lived life long enough to know what Anitya is from a long-term point of view, impermanence. We have passed our baby age, childhood, youth, and come to a stage in life where we are very clear that over a long period of time, things change and we don't like it. That is very clear. What else do we know? So we also know that this non-self, it's all about there is no one controlling, certainly not in my control. If things were in my control, I shouldn't fall sick at extremely inappropriate moments. All moments are inappropriate to fall sick. I wouldn't grow old. Having to wear glasses was quite a bummer. And if I had any control, I wouldn't have let my eyes grow old. As we grow old, there are many other disadvantages. And then, without any permission, the body just ceases to function one day and you are dead. And that is definitely not how things would end if things were in our control. So I think most of us get this, that there is a program in our DNA. From the time we were born, that program is running. We can optimize it. We can destruct it. We can bring it to a complete end if we want to. But there's one thing we can't do. We can't change it. The program will run unless you are self-destructive and you end it prematurely. So that level of understanding of non-self, we all have. The combination is not a satisfactory situation, is it? Long-term, things are changing. That change is not in my control. And that combination is not a satisfactory situation. So if you really ask yourself, you do understand impermanence, unsatisfactory nature of life, and non-self. Then one of the two must be true. If you do understand these three things, you are enlightened or you are not. So there is a way to check whether you are enlightened, just in case. Just in case you are, we can congratulate you. How do you check whether you are an enlightened being or not? So non-enlightened beings have three roots that govern everything, which we call lobha, dvesha, moha. So lobha, again, a Pali word, refers to everything that you desire, you like, things I like. That is lobha. Dvesha refers to everything, all aversion, irritations, frustrations, small angers, large angers, losing your temper, getting mad, all of it. In short, things I don't like. And what is moha? Why are you having things you like and things you don't like? Because there's an I, and that is moha. The delusion of a concept called me, myself, I. As long as that delusion is there, I am there, I exist, and there are things I like, and there are things I don't like. So it starts with moha, and where there is moha, there is lobha and there is dvesha. So whenever you have a doubt, whenever you have a very good meditation session, you see some lights, and you think, wow, did I get enlightened? Maybe you did. I don't know. Haven't experienced it yet. This is your yardstick to check whether you are enlightened. Are there things I desire? Are there things I dislike? Is it coming from quite a well felt, recognized process, thought process around me, myself? If the answer is yes, even to a decimal point, it's a yes, then there's still some work to be done. In the 4 stages of enlightenment, the part of an ego, which is the what we call mane, that part, what is it called? It's about the great conceited pride we have in ourselves about me as a person, my achievements, my background, my education, wealth, status, role in life, title, at work, in life, everything. It gives us a feeling of superiority over others. Every human has this, more or less. That is what starts everything else. So, if we have understood the three characteristics of life and we are not enlightened, what are we missing? We must be missing something. So what we are missing is what the Buddha was referring to was not in the long term. He was referring to everything in the Four Noble Truths. He was referring to right now, in this moment. A split second. In Sinhalese, it is called Asuru Gasana Sanaki, a split second. Now, this could be, it's more than 1/10 of a second. It's more than 1/100th of a second, 1,000 of a second, 100,000 of a second. It's even smaller. And this is why we miss this point, because it's too fine. So when he spoke about impermanence, he was referring to impermanence now. When he was talking of non-self, he was referring to it happening right now. And the unsatisfactory nature was referring to now. And the starting to look at it is where this introspection comes in. Looking at what is going on now inside the body, inside the mind, is Sati Patthana. And of course, he described 4 ways of doing it. So Satara Sati Patthana. So looking at what's happening in the body, Kayanupassana, what's happening to the feelings, Vedananupassana, how our emotions and moods are changing, Chittanupassana, why is it happening, is Dhammanupassana. Understanding why all this is happening is Dhammanupassana. And all 4 is required for the introspection. So, where do we start? The starting point is always from where we know. It all starts with how we experience the world. We experience the world, every human being, whether you are a king or a pauper on the street, you experience the world in this one manner, through 6 sense doors. Your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. That is 6. The 6 sense doors have 6 sense objects. The eye can see visual objects. The ear can hear sound objects. The nose can smell delightful or unpleasant smell objects. The tongue can taste up to 6 or 7 various taste objects, what we call sour, salty, spicy, sweet, what else? Bitter, and so on. The body can feel the touch sensation, the touch of the wind, the breeze, the touch of a mosquito who bites, the touch of a fly, and the fly lands on your face when you're meditating. Even the little ache in the body when you're seated to meditate, it's all the touch that the body feels. And the mind, the 6th sense door is the mind. What are the objects? It has thoughts, moods, emotions. So 6 sense doors, 6 objects. Now, let us take one just for ease of explanation. Your eye and a visual object. Just because you have an eye that is healthy, can see, and there is a visual object which is reflecting light, that doesn't mean you are seeing. In order to see, you need your mind's attention. Your mind's attention is required for the eye sense door and the visual object to meet. This is why many a times in your life you would have walked past somebody, whether at school or office or somewhere at a gathering, and the person says, "Oh my, how come you are going by without saying hi?" And then you'll be like, "Oh my goodness, I didn't see you, I'm so sorry." And the person will be like, "How can you not see me? I was right in front of you." But we didn't see the person. Why? Because we were preoccupied. When your mind is preoccupied, even if your eye is perfectly functioning and there's a visual object right in front of you, without your mind's attention, you don't see it. So this is also why, let's say somebody whacked you, hopefully not, somebody whacked you with something on your head and you fell unconscious, your eye is working, there are visual objects, but your mind is not working. It's temporarily unconscious. Without your mind's attention, you cannot see. So the healthy eye and visual object alone is not enough. You need your mind's attention. Same for everything else. There'll be your ear, there'll be sound, but you won't hear. If you are concentrated on something else, you are so engrossed in something else, you didn't hear. Best example is when you are having your dinner, watching a movie. Sometimes you are finished eating and you wonder, what did I eat just now? Because you are so engrossed in the movie. So the mind can focus the attention only on one thing at a time. So then how do you explain watching a movie? Because there is visual objects and sound objects. So imagine you are watching a movie while eating. How many things at play? Visual objects, sound objects, taste objects. And if you're sitting in a comfortable sofa, having the fan on, so many more objects. But after a point, your attention just focuses on one thing and everything else gets blurred into the background and you don't even notice. So as far as the movie is concerned, what happens is for 1/100th of a second, you focus your attention on the visual object. The next couple of hundredths of a second, you focus on the sound objects. Then for a couple of hundredths of a second, you again focus on the visual object. By the time you get to 1 complete second, you have done this multiple times at such a speed that it looks like for you that you are hearing and seeing at the same time. And in that 1/100th of a second, if you also notice the taste, you are watching, hearing, and eating at the same time, even though you are not. It just appears to be that way. So this is how when we were kids, most of us, we would listen to music while doing our homework. Management concepts were written on multitasking, but now they have realized that it's not possible. You are just being highly unproductive by trying to do many things at the same time. Human beings were meant to operate, focusing on one thing at a time. That's when you're at your best. So, what is happening? You have your 6 sense doors and 6 sense objects. Whenever your attention connects, for each sense door, there arises a sense consciousness. When the eye meets a visual object, eye consciousness arises. When there's attention to it as well, eye consciousness arises. In Pali, this is called Chakku Vinyana. So Vinyana means knowing. Danagan. You know that you are seeing. Vinyana means to know. You know that you are seeing. Right now, you know that you are hearing because the ear door is connecting with a sound object and you are paying attention. As a result, ear consciousness arises. Sota Vinyana. And you know that you are hearing. If there was something fragrant, some smell, your nose picks it up because your attention went there. There arises nose consciousness, if there is such a thing. Certainly in Pali, it is called Kahana Vinyana. So I suppose we are allowed to call it nose consciousness. Then when you are eating, many of you, if you all are foodies, you know when there is too much salt, too little salt, too much spice, too little spice, too sweet, not sweet enough. That is when your tongue sense door is connecting with a taste object and you have paid attention to it. And there arises Jivha Vinyana, tongue consciousness. You know that you are tasting something. Similarly, the body sense door connects with a touch object, let's say the fan, and you pay attention to the soft breeze that's hitting your body, and there arises Kaya Vinyana, body consciousness. You know that your body is feeling something. And in the mind, sometimes when you have nothing to do, thoughts come, various thoughts. Sometimes when you just look into your mind, you'll notice that it's in a mood, sometimes a happy mood, sometimes a grumpy mood. So when the mind is aware of a mental object through attention, there arises mind consciousness, manovinyana. So this is the starting point. So the Buddha said there are 6 sense doors: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. There are 6 sense objects: visual object, sound object, smell object, taste object, touch object, and some mind object. And when a door connects with an object, there arises a consciousness. And those are also 6. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, smell, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. Chakku vinyana, sota vinyana, ghana vinyana, jivha vinyana, kaya vinyana, mano vinyana. Now, when a sense door and a sense object meet through attention and the consciousness arises, in your mind forms a rupa. So if you think of the Panchaskandha, rupa, vedana, sanya, sankara, vinyana, a rupa gets formed. So let us look at this in a simple way. You have your eye and some visual object comes in front of your eye. Let's say it's a flower. And you put your attention to it. There arises eye consciousness. what you see is, what falls on the eye is light, 7 colors. There must be definitely more colors than 7 colors, but our human scope is limited to 7 colors. And then the optical nerve carries that color as electromagnetic data to the brain. And in the brain, a picture is formed. That is what the Buddha referred to as rupa. It's in your brain, it's in your mind that it gets formed. So this is, because it's a visual thing, it's a rupa, visual rupa. Similarly, you have your ear sense door. There is a sound object, let's say a doggy. Doggy is barking, woof woof. And you put your mind's attention to it. There arises ear consciousness. What happens? The eardrum is reverberating. There are electromagnetic data that is getting picked up by the, what nerve then? Like the optical nerve, some sound nerve. Takes the data to the brain. And the sound rupa. Earlier it was a visual rupa, now a sound rupa is formed. In the mind, in the brain. Sound. Similarly, the nose, pick up a smell, some nice smell, something's cooking, nice smell, fragrant, aroma. How did that happen? There is the nose, there is a smell object. Your attention went to it. Nose consciousness arose. What the nose caught from those fine little hairs in the nose, it was some kind of an aroma that got into some electromagnetic whatever data, went from some nerve to the brain, and a smell got created. So forth. Eye and visual object, eye consciousness created a visual rupa. The ear, a sound, and the ear consciousness created a sound rupa. Nose, a smell, nose consciousness together created a smell rupa. Tongue, a taste, tongue consciousness created a taste related rupa. Body, some touch sensation. And the kaya vinyana, the body consciousness created a touch related rupa. And the mind, some thought, some mood, some emotion, attention came, and the mind consciousness created a mind rupa. So in the rupa vedana sanya sankara vinyana, rupa is what got created in the brain, in the mind. Why I refer to the brain is all these sense doors are in the body. So we know where the eye is because we can touch it, we can feel it, we can see it. We know where the ear is, again can touch, can feel, can see. We know where the nose is. We know where the tongue is. We can see the body. Now where on earth is the mind? So we know that if the brain stops functioning, the mind doesn't work. As we grow old and very old, the brain cells die, and then the mind cannot think as clearly as it did before. So the mind functions, functionality of the mind in the brain. So all these nerves and everything, all this needs the brain. So all the sense doors are in the body. All the sense objects are outside. The visual object, the sound object, smell object, taste object, touch object. Even the thoughts, they come from outside. Everything is outside. The sense door is in the body. The sense objects are outside. When a sense door and a sense object meet and your mind's attention is there, the sense consciousness arises and a Rupa is formed. And that is the first part of the Panchaskandha, Rupa. So when a Rupa is formed, what happens? This is all a mind game, okay? Now, one big mistake that happened when we were studying this for O-level, and even now in even the Dhamma school textbooks, it's written as a physical thing, Rupa, body. But actually, what was being referred to was a sense door, a sense object, mind's attention, sense consciousness arises, and a Rupa is formed. It's in the mind. Everything we experience, it's in the mind. So this Rupa gets formed, and then immediately, within a split second, I would call it smaller than 100,000 of a second, a Vedana arises. Vedana arises because a Rupa was formed. What is this Vedana? It is usually, it's always at the beginning, neutral, until it is recognized. Who recognizes it? The Sanya. Sanya is the one who recognizes what is this Rupa. Until it gets recognized, the Vedana is neutral. Now, locally, we use the word Vedana, refer to Dukkha Vedana. But actually in Pali, Vedana is a neutral term. Vedana, when it is pleasant, is Sukha Vedana, pleasant feelings. Vedana, when it is unpleasant, it is Dukkha Vedana. And when it is neutral, the Buddha referred to it as Adukkhama Sukha, neutral. So when the Rupa gets formed, initially it's neutral feeling. But within the next split second, 100th of a second or 100,000 of a second, the Rupa gets recognized through the Sanya. Now, the easiest way to think of Sanya is like a filing cabinet. Every experience since the time you were born up to now is recorded in various files and put into a nice filing system in your brain. So your brain is like a supercomputer. So we use these files to recognize things. These files have a lot of information. So let's say your eye saw a visual object, a flower, and there arose eye consciousness. The data got carried by the optical nerve, and a Rupa was formed, and a neutral Vedana came, Adukkhama Sukha. And now the brain is shifting through the files and finds the file related to this flower, pulls it out. Ah, this is a sunflower. Now, what is written in that file is very unique to each person. So I don't know what you think about a sunflower. I'm kind of okay with sunflowers. Not a big fan, but it looks pretty, but it doesn't smell nice. So I am kind of average liking towards it. So all that is there in the file. It looks pretty, but it doesn't smell nice. So I kind of like it. It's kind of cute. And then what happens? The Vedana now changes to suit the recognition. So in this case, it's a Sukha Vedana, kind of like it. Small Sukha Vedana. If it was a rose, for some reason, I think people make too much fuss about roses. I'm not a big fan of roses. And that is what will be in my file. Not a big fan. I don't know whether that is neutral or whether that is borderline or minor. Dukkha. Probably a dukkha. I just think about all the fuss people make over roses. And in Sri Lanka, it's very hard to grow the thing also. When I see all the trouble and effort people take, I'm like, why? Why don't you grow something that just grows without all this trouble. Yeah, so probably my file has dukkha in it. So Araliya, for example, I love Araliya. It has a nice fragrance. It's white. There's a bit of yellow in it. It looks beautiful when it is fallen on a grass lawn. So the Araliya file will have all of these things. So you see, it's very person specific. And as per that, your Vedana will depend on what is in your file. Now what happens next? So Rupa, Vedana, Sanya. Then comes the Sankara. That is when you start forming formations, mental formations. You're forming your karma. Your mind, your words, your actions start forming in line with the Vedana coming from the Sanya. So for example, sunflower, kind of like it. So that's the thought. The thought is like, yeah. Shrug your shoulders, move on, nothing here. If it is a rose, it will be like, oh God. Because usually somebody around me will go like, oh my God, I want that rose. I want that. I want to plant it. And I'll be like, I'll be rolling my eyes. Here we go again. Those are reactions to an external stimulus. Now see, your eye captured light. Your eye has no idea that it's seeing a rose. The name rose was given by society. We have learned it as a child. And that too, I learned it in Sinhala and in English. Now, if a Japanese came and called it something, I wouldn't know what he is talking about. It's all in the file. And some dislike to it, whatever the reason. And then I react according to what is on the file. So this is why a monk once said, you are eating stale food. Because it's not something based on happening right now. This is all based on history. The past, it's gone. So the Sankara is thoughts come, words form, actions form, and you react. Now, if you take something a little bit more extreme than a flower, like a human being, somebody I like, what happens? I always pick on Samudra. I like Samudra. I say Samudra, the mind forms, I need to go and talk to Samudra. And then the words will come, hey Samudra, how are you? And then the body will also give her a pat, a hug, depends. And then if it is somebody I don't like, what will I do? The thought arises, oh my God. Words will form, probably words will not form. Action will be try to hide, disappear, fade away, try not to make contact. It's all reactive, very, very reactive. So this is how karma forms. All of these things lead to karma, and that leads to bhava. So what is the difference between us and an enlightened being? That is interesting. Where is the difference? So when it comes to the six sense doors, no difference. I have it, enlightened being has it. When it comes to sense objects, no difference. It's all outside, external for him and for me. Excuse the gender bias here. For her, let's talk of a lady Rahatan Wahanse. Anyway, the sense consciousness, no difference. Rupa forms, no difference. Vedana, initial Vedana is adukkama sukha, neutral, no difference. The difference starts with the sanya, the recognition, what is on the file, the stale food. That is where the difference starts. In my filing cabinet, there's a million files. Imagine, I didn't realize that such distinction for flowers, unbelievable. Imagine the distinction we have for people. People are much more complex than flowers, right? Scary. Millions of files for the millions of emotions we have about a million of things. What does the Rahatan Vahanse have in the filing cabinet? A, there's no cabinet. There's only one file. In that file, there's only one piece of paper. And that piece of paper has just 3 words. Everything is seen as, recognized as, anitya, dukkha, anatta. When something is recognized as impermanent, non-self, and non-satisfactory, what is the Vedana that comes as a result? It is still adukkama sukha. The Vedana is neutral. And if the Vedana is neutral, what is the sankhara? Nothing. Nothing to think, nothing to say, nothing to do in reaction. When there's nothing to form, no mental formations, where is the karma? No karma. If there's no karma, where is the bhava? No bhava. All because the sanya has anitya, dukkha, anatta. Everything in the world is seen for what it is. Everything in the world has only 3 characteristics. The enlightened being sees only those. There's really nothing to get excited in a happy way. There's really nothing to get excited in an unhappy way. Because this moment is just passing. It's already passed by the time your sense door captures it. By the time it's processed by your brain, it's already passed, it's gone. You are processing something in the past. So what's the big deal? What I see, I just see. It's just light. What I hear, I just hear. It's just sound. So the Buddha said, Dutude, Dutuva Pamanai. What you see is just what you see. It's just light. Asunade, Asuna Pamanai. What you are hearing is just sound. Nothing else to it. Where does all the drama come? It comes from our pruthajana state of mind where we don't recognize reality for reality. And we have a filing cabinet with lots of files. Based on our past experiences, we have formed a like or dislike to everything. Where is that like and dislike coming from? It's coming from a sense of I, me, myself. Every external sense object, every external sense experience, we have formed a liking or a disliking based on a non-existing entity called me, myself, and I. And therefore, the Buddha said, with the root moha, delusion, comes desire, lobha, and aversion, dvesha. Because there is I, there are things I like, and there are things I dislike. So the Panchaskandha for a Rahatan Vahanse is Panchaskandha. For a Pruthajana like us, a non-enlightened being, it is a Pancha Upadana Skandha. How does this Upadana happen? That is also quite simple. You think of, let us use Samudra again. If I did. So my eye sees a visual object, Samudra, and then what happens? Initially, it is a neutral sensation, adukkama vedana, and then comes Sukha Vedana, because I like the person, it's in the file. And then comes the reaction of talking to her, giving her a hug, and all of that. And then Samudra says, hey, I just came to say hi. I got to run. I'll talk to you later. And she goes away. Now, she is not in my visual horizon anymore. So the sense door is there, but the sense object is not there anymore. But what happens? I continue to think about her. Oh, nice girl, good friend, very helpful. What's going on here? That is what Upadana is all about. The sense object is no longer there, but you are clinging onto it even after it is gone. And this whole Panchaskandha, that is how we experience things, by clinging. We can cling with liking, we can cling with dislike. So the Buddha said, you need to first understand what is going on here. Your sense doors are capturing external sense objects. By the time you realize you are seeing something or you are hearing something, that moment has already passed because it happened so fast. And the next moment has come, and the next, and the next. Many moments have passed before you realize what is going on. And then you recognize it based on a non-existing concept called I. You have already formed an opinion that you like some things and you dislike some things. Based on that, you cling either ways, with liking or disliking. That is what is happening. And the almost magical, amazing thing about this is, once you start to observe this, this process stops. This process can happen only when you are ignorant about it. The moment you start gaining insight about this process, observing the process starts to reverse, to fade away, to eliminate. And you start really seeing how unvaluable it is to get attached to things that are so fleeting. How unimportant it is to get annoyed with things that has already changed by the time you're experiencing, which is already gone. That moment is gone, another moment has taken place. Anitya, impermanence, is happening at a speed that we cannot comprehend through our normal senses. But we can understand and gain deep insights when we get into introspection, when we slow down and we start observing. We see how moods change based on external stimulus. Just observe. Even though we cannot observe at the speed in which it's happening, we can observe how much our moods change based on external stimulus. So for example, when you're having a cup of tea or drinking something today, eating something, just take one gulp and pause. After the gulp, let's say you're having a nice cup of tea. After you drink the tea, you pause. Now, the sense door is your tongue. The sense object is the tea. It's no more there now. You have swallowed it. Now observe what's happening. While the taste was there, you would be like, so nice, yummy, yummy, yummy. Very nice. Once it is swallowed, observe the great desire. Every fiber in your body asking you to take the next sip. That is Upadana. It's beautiful to watch how strong it is. That's all we need to do. Just observe. All our life, this has been happening. And now we know. And now we start to observe. And in that observation, over a period of time, the gradual realization will come as to how fleeting this is. And there arises dispassion. It has to arise. It cannot be jump-started. It cannot be forced. It has to arise. It's something like you can't hurry up and let go. Letting go has to happen naturally. Because if you're trying to let go, you are only cementing the concept I. I is a doer. That's why we are always doing something. And we hate to see someone doing nothing. We think there's something wrong with them if they're doing nothing. Because we are so doers. This doing is what cements the concept I, because we feel we are in control. But to just observe how an automatic process is taking place. A sense door, a sense object, attention, voila, sense consciousness. There arises Rupa. I know I can see, I know I can hear, I know I can taste, I know I can smell, I know I can feel, I know I'm thinking, I'm feeling. The neutral Vedana, too fast to comprehend. You'll probably miss it. And then the recognition, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm tasting. So think of something very simple. Think of what you ate today. Did you like it? Was the salt enough? Was the spice enough? Was the chili enough? Was this enough? Was that enough? Or was it not enough? Recognition. Do I like it? Do I not like it? If I like it, I want more. If I don't like it, I want to get rid of it. Formations. Wanting more. A formation, a reaction. Wanting to get rid of a formation, a reaction. Just observe. Just observe. Don't try to change it. Don't try to interfere. If you're trying to interfere, then you're cementing I there. It's a process. Just observe. Observe what is naturally happening. Through that observation, dispassion will naturally arise, and let it arise. All we need to do is observe. That is why Venerable Ajahn Chah said, sit down and observe. And when I read it the first time, I was like, observe. Observe what? That's the instruction. Just observe. So Panchaskandha is the fundamental thing that the Buddha told. To observe how the Panchaskandha becomes a Pancha Upadanasana. Once you start to observe this is a lot of fun actually. You can see throughout your life, every day, every hour, what a lot is going on. The thing is this, now if you are working Monday to Friday, it's very hard to observe this because we are running all the time. But if you have time, you can set aside time to sit down and do nothing, then you can observe it. As you improve your practice, you can observe it on the go, on the run. And that is why the Buddha said, the Satara Satipatthana, this needs to be practiced. Say it in Sinhala first. Yanakota, enakota, hanakota, bonakota. Vesikili, kesikili pava, yanavita. While coming, while going, while eating, while drinking, while in the toilet, in the bathroom. You can practice this because it is introspection. Being mindful about your body and the mind from inside. That is what the Dhammanupassana is all about. Now, since Dr. Manori requested, I'll briefly tell you about the Panchanivarnas. I know it's an overdose, I'm sorry, but for most of you seasoned meditators, it is not. For some of you, if it is, you can do a bit of a practice and come back to this Varana. Maybe we should do that even for 10 minutes. Let's just do that. Otherwise, it's always important to practice what you hear. So let us take the body, for example, because we started at 1 o'clock, now it is 4 o'clock. For 3 hours, more or less, you were sitting down. Your body was not meant to sit down for so long. So your body must be having lots of complaints now. If you now sit back and close your eyes, let us do that. Sit back comfortably. Close your eyes just for 10 minutes and just observe what is going on in your body. How does it feel? Observe the head. How does the head feel? Upper body, lower body, especially where you're sitting. Knees. If you're sitting on the floor, I'm sure your knees have a lot to tell you now. Legs, feet. From the feet, go up the legs, knees, lower body, where you're sitting, upper body, neck, head. Just gently go, scanning your body, top to toe, toe to top, and see what's going on. If you feel an ache or pain somewhere, just observe. Observe. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Is it an intense dislike? Mild dislike? Just observe. Can you feel the fan on your body? Can you feel the fabric on your body, the cloth you are wearing? Can you feel your weight on how you are sitting? Is it weighing down now? Is it uncomfortable? Is the knee hurting? Is the leg numb? If you're sitting on a chair, is your feet touching the floor? How does your feet feel? You feel the texture of the floor? Is it a tile? Is it a carpet? Are you wearing shoes? Are you barefooted? Just observe. Whatever it is, when you notice a touch sensation, just observe whether you like it or do you dislike it at a very subtle level. Very subtle. Keep the alarm for just a few minutes. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So that was a short 5 minutes of practice you got. Dr. Manodi, I think we should open for questions. No? So I know I went into quite a simplified detail. So sorry, it took a bit longer than expected, but I think for beginners, I know there are very seasoned meditators here, but for beginners, we need to do it in a simplified, long way, I believe. So
thank you very much.